First month at my new job, this girl from my department promised me $1,000 if I could be her fiancé for 3 months. I thought it was a prank. Renee was the girl in the office that made managers forget about their wives. I was the new guy who only spoke to people about code. But then she explained that her hated cousin's wedding was in 90 days, and she needed someone tall and handsome, so her family would stop pressuring her to find someone. What she conveniently forgot to mention is that the cousin getting married was Sasha's cousin, my ex who had left me for my best friend. We drew up an actual contract on my laptop right there. No kissing, hand-holding only when necessary. We'd break up a week after the wedding, and we'd split any cash gifts 60-40 since she was paying me. She made me practice my boyfriend voice in the supply closet. "You sound like you're reading a hostage note," she said, fixing my collar. I had to practice calling her babe without cringing. Rehearse how we met until our story was bulletproof. She taught me her dad liked football and her mom would judge my shoes. The first time I met her parents, I said we met at a conference while she said coffee shop. Her mom's eyebrow raised exactly 1 millimeter, but her dad laughed and said, "Can't keep your stories straight, must be true love." They grilled me for hours. I left with them believing I owned a ranch back in Canada. Renee made a show of kissing my cheek on the way out. Very theatrical, very fake. But then 2 weeks in, things started shifting subtly. At work, we kept our distance, separate lunch breaks, minimal interaction. But she started bringing me coffee without asking. Just left it on my desk with a sticky note. "For the performance tonight. Oat milk latte, extra shot," which I'd never told her. The family dinners were exhausting at first. All performance. Hand-holding that felt like a business handshake. Practiced smiles. But by the third dinner, I wasn't checking my watch anymore. Her dad and I actually talked football. Her mom taught me recipes while Renee watched with this unreadable expression. Family game night changed everything. When we destroyed her siblings at charades, her dad pulled me aside. I've never seen her this comfortable with someone. That night in the car, Renee was quiet. "Sorry," she said suddenly. "For what?" I asked. "Just all of this. Everything I'm putting you through." I thought she meant the fake relationship. Looking back, she was apologizing for what was coming. Our text conversations evolved too. First, just logistics. Dinner at 7, blue shirt. Then she'd text after family events, "You did good tonight." Then random thoughts at midnight. Then, "You awake?" at 2 a.m., followed by 40 messages about coworkers, movies, anything. She'd mention my idiot ex who fumbled the best guy ever, and I'd tense up. "Seriously, who cheats on someone that amazing?" She'd push, watching my reaction. "Some people make mistakes," I'd mumble, and she'd look away, guilty about something I didn't understand yet. One night at the office, both staying late, we finally acknowledged it. "This is getting complicated," I said. "It's just method acting," she insisted, but her hands were shaking. "Renee, you brought me soup when I was sick last week. That wasn't for your family." She stood up frustrated. "So what if I care? We need to stick to the contract," I said weakly. "Right," she agreed. But her nephew's birthday party was when pretending became impossible. I did dinosaur voices to make him laugh, and when I looked up, Renee was staring at me like I'd solved world hunger. Other moms kept asking how long we'd been together, and she'd get this soft look. The cake tasting was what broke us both. She started sobbing over chocolate versus vanilla, but I couldn't understand why. I held her in the parking lot while she ugly cried into my shirt. "I'm so sorry, Alan. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," I said. "Yes, it is," she whispered, and no matter what I said, she refused to feel less guilty. "Pretending to care about you is killing me," I finally admitted one night. She looked like she might cry. "Alan, there's something." I perked up, but then she couldn't bring herself to say it. "After the wedding," she said. "We'll talk after the wedding." That's when it happened. The rehearsal dinner was the first time I would meet her cousin, the bride. I walked in confident, her hand in mine, ready to charm great aunts and distant cousins. I had been genuinely looking forward to it just to spend more time with Renee, but then I saw her, Sasha, in a pearly white dress. We locked eyes and suddenly the world stopped. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Then the worst possible thing happened. Keon stepped out from behind her, my ex-best friend, wearing a matching pearl white tie. The three of us stood frozen while Renee's relatives milled around clutching cocktails. Renee went rigid, and when I looked at her, I saw it. This was what she had been apologizing for. Sasha started storming toward us. Keon followed her, saying, Wait, I can't do this." I turned to Renee. "Please." Her voice broke, but I was already walking out, leaving her standing there with her hand still extended toward where mine had been. She followed me to the parking lot. "Please, just get through dinner. You knew they'd be here." "I didn't know about Keon, but you knew about Sasha." "That wasn't a question." "Alan number." "I originally just wanted." I cut her off. I told her I needed time, then got in my car and left. She had to walk back in and make up some excuse about food poisoning. She texted me all evening. 72 messages and 21 calls I didn't respond to. But then next morning at 4 a.m., she showed up at my door. "The wedding's in 10 hours. Please," she sobbed. I stood there, not knowing what to do. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering even though it was warm outside. I opened the door wider, and she practically fell through it. Her makeup had run down her face in black streaks, and her dress from the rehearsal dinner was wrinkled like she'd slept in her car. The neighbors across the hall had cracked their door open to watch, so I pulled her inside before they called security. She collapsed onto my couch and immediately started digging through her purse with trembling hands. Her phone screen lit up with dozens of missed calls from her family. She swiped past them and pulled up old photos from her camera roll. 2 girls in matching red Christmas sweaters smiled at the camera, maybe 12 years old. Renee pointed at the taller one with perfect teeth. That was Sasha. They looked like sisters almost. Same nose, same chin. But Sasha's smile was bigger and brighter even back then. Renee scrolled to another photo from high school where Sasha wore a crown at what looked like homecoming while Renee stood in the background. Another photo showed them at some family party where everyone surrounded Sasha while Renee sat alone at a side table. My chest got tight as the pieces started clicking together in my head. She'd known exactly who my ex was when she hired me for this fake boyfriend job. She'd known I'd walk into that rehearsal dinner and see the woman who destroyed me. My hands started shaking too, but from anger, not sadness. Renee must have seen my face change because she grabbed my arm and shook her head so hard her earrings rattled. She tried to explain that yes, at first she just wanted to show up with someone impressive to make Sasha jealous for once in her life. But then everything changed when she actually got to know me. The coffee she brought me every morning, the soup when I was sick, the way she cried at the cake tasting, none of that was fake. Her voice cracked as she talked about how Sasha always got everything first. Better grades even though Renee studied harder. The lead in every school play while Renee worked backstage. The promotion at their grandmother's company that Renee had been promised. When Sasha announced her engagement at Thanksgiving, their mom literally turned to Renee and asked why she couldn't be more like her cousin. I walked to the kitchen because I needed to do something with my hands before I punched a wall. My body went through the motions of making coffee without thinking about it. 2 scoops of grounds, water to the 4-cup line, then I reached for the oat milk without even realizing I was making her drink, not mine. Extra shot of espresso, no sugar, exactly how she liked it. My hands shook as I poured, and I had to admit to myself that I'd memorized realized every little thing about her without meaning to. She followed me to the kitchen and pulled up her text messages to show me dozens of unsent drafts from weeks ago. Each one started with her trying to tell me the truth about Sasha. The timestamps showed she'd written them at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, right after our family dinners. But she never sent them because every time I mentioned my ex, my whole face would change and she couldn't stand being the one to hurt me like that again. The anger came rushing back, and I slammed the coffee mug down so hard that liquid splashed onto the counter. She knew I'd walk into that room and see them together. She knew what that would do to me after everything I'd told her about the betrayal. Nathan's toy dinosaur sat on my coffee table where he'd left it last week when they'd stopped by after his swimming lesson. Seeing it made everything worse because her whole family had become part of my life, and now it was all built on lies. Renee completely fell apart then, sliding down the kitchen cabinet until she sat on my floor sobbing. She kept saying she'd tried to prepare me by bringing up my ex in conversations to see if I was ready to face her. She thought she could somehow make it easier, but she was too scared to just tell the truth. Her whole body shook as she admitted she'd fallen for me and ruined everything because she was a coward. My phone started buzzing on the counter with text after text. What's really going through Renee's mind when she picks this specific guy for her scheme? She calls him tall and handsome, but there's something deliberate about choosing someone who only spoke to people about code. Makes me wonder if she wanted someone she thought wouldn't get too attached or ask too many questions about her real motives. Marcus asking if I was okay and saying they were worried about me. Elena saying Renee had left the dinner crying and nobody knew where either of us went. Even little Nathan had sent a voice message that his mom helped him record, asking where Uncle Alan was and why Aunt Renee was so sad. Each message made my chest hurt more because these people had become real family to me over the past 2 months. I sat down on the kitchen floor across from her because my legs felt too heavy to keep standing. The wedding would start in 9 hours and I had no idea what to do about any of this. She looked up at me with red swollen eyes and said I should choose what happens next and she'd accept whatever I decided. The clock on my microwave showed 4:47 a.m. and we sat there on my kitchen floor in silence while the coffee maker gurgled and dripped behind us. She finally pushed herself up from my kitchen floor and started laying out options while pacing around my tiny apartment. Option 1 was I could come to the wedding and we'd stick to the contract like nothing changed, pure business. She'd even pay me extra on top of the 1,000 we agreed on, and after today she'd never bother me again if that's what I wanted. Option 2 was I could stay home and she'd tell everyone we broke up, make up some story about how I wasn't ready for commitment or whatever would make her family stop asking questions. I watched her hands shake as she gripped the counter and asked what option 3 was, even though I wasn't sure why I was asking. Her whole body went still and she turned to look at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Option 3 was we could go to this wedding together not as fake anything, but as whatever we actually were to each other now, facing this whole mess as real people instead of actors playing parts. The words hung there between us while the